So being new to comics is kind of like walking into a buffet for the very first time. Everything is fresh and exciting, but everyone else in the room has been coming here for the last 40 years, and they already know what they like and what they hate, and they're very passionate about that. And as a newcomer, you don't really just get recommendations, you kind of get rules, like what runs are essential and what stories are trash, and most importantly, what you're supposed to love and what you're supposed to hate. One of the runs I've constantly been told that I should hate is Matt Fraction's Batman run. Now I'll say this up front, we're only 5 issues in. I've noticed some opinions have started to turn around, and a few people who completely were out of it on issue 1 seem to be warming up to it now, which is cool. But even now, regularly, whenever I tell some people that I'm really enjoying this run, basically they tell me my opinion's kind of wrong. Not that like I disagree or it didn't really work out for me, but a straight up like, you obviously don't read comics, so you shouldn't like it kind of thing, which I don't fully understand. So let me be clear before we go any further. I'm not here to change anyone's mind on what's good or bad, and I'm not claiming that this is the best Batman run ever written. I'm definitely not pretending to be some sort of comic expert. We all know I'm new to comics. I say it probably way too much. But what I am here to talk about is what I personally love about this run and why I think it's being a little overhated, at least in my opinion. The biggest complaint I've seen with this Batman is that he lacks compassion, especially towards Killer Croc, saying that he can never change and prepare to be disappointed by other villains. People say that he feels a little too cold here and harsher, and that he doesn't carry over his character development from previous writers' runs. And honestly, I find that criticism a little weird. This is a relaunch. It's meant to be kind of a soft restart to the series. Now, I haven't had the chance to read the previous Batman run before Matt Fraction joined, so maybe it was the best Batman ever written, and I'm just not sure. But I feel like starting a book with a perfectly realized, fully evolved Batman who's already learned his lesson from previous runs doesn't really make sense if we're gonna do a relaunch. If Batman begins the series already at his emotional peak and is quite level-headed and kind of understands where he's at, where does he go from there? There's no room for growth, no room for conflict, and no meaningful arc to really follow. Now, I know a lot of these complaints came before the first issue even came out, because when it finally came out and we got our hands on it, some realized that Batman is kind of in a bad state of mind and that he's been dealing with some things like the loss of his best friend, or basically his dad, and he's kind of in an off mood and dealing with just sad days. So when Batman encounters Killer Croc, he initially prepares for a fight. However, being influenced by Alfred in his mind, he realizes that Killer Croc isn't really seeking confrontation, and instead he's kind of regressed to a childlike state. Recognizing this, Batman decides to take a different approach and sits and talks with Killer Croc, and understanding that fighting isn't always necessary, and that there's a chance that people can change and even he can change. Another thing I've noticed is a lot of people's opinions on the new suits designs. And look, I get it. This is 100% preference. Suits are always going to be subjective. But if you genuinely don't think this Batman suit is fire, I actually want you to comment what suit you like more and why. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just curious of what you're comparing it to and what's your kind of like holy grail of suit, you know what I mean? But this suit honestly lands top 3 for me for Batman suits of all time. Most of my Batman experience comes from movies and animated shows where we almost always get a black suit. And don't get me wrong, I love a black suit. Stuff like Absolute Batman, The Batman with Robert Pattinson, and Batman Dark Patterns all look incredible. But there's just something about the blue in this run that just feels right. Especially Jorge's art. The blue just pops. It feels right. It's not overly goofy. I think it's just perfect, and I absolutely just love it. Now, here's kind of a hot take maybe. I'm not really sure if it is, but I actually really liked Tim's suit in this one. This shit is fire. I absolutely love this suit. The red and black base with the yellow accents plus the full yellow cape, it feels so distinct. It feels like Red Robin, but it doesn't feel like it's just another copy of like Dick's Robin. And I'm especially glad that it's not the man suit. This suit haunts me. I don't like it. Sorry. It's just so goofy. I know some people love that suit, but I'm just being honest. I really don't like it. It's just, it feels weird. The no ears is killing me. Anyways, seeing Tim in something that feels this bold and new and confident is a huge win in my book, to be honest. Overall, I think the suit designs in the series are just really nice and really impressive. Quick side note, because this deserves to be said, the art in general, Gotham feels alive. It's gritty, but it's also brighter, and it feels just more modernized, and I love that feel of it. The Batmobile also super clean. I love this one. This might be one of my favorites. Feels aggressive, but it feels good. It feels classic. I don't know. But yeah, this run just straight up looks so nice, page to page. I love it. But now for my third point of things things I've heard that people don't like. This is kind of 50-50 though, to the people I've talked to. The main negatives I hear is that Minotaur, he's just not that interesting yet, or his rise to power feels a little forced because it happens so fast. And some people I've talked to said that they would have rather seen a more established villain in this role, which I don't fully get. I love seeing a new villain being created, but we're only 5 issues in. I feel like there's a huge chance to have a cool backstory. I feel like a lot of people forget that a lot of comic villains don't start out fully formed. We didn't get their entire backstory and motivation dumped onto us immediately. Those things kind of take time, and I think this run eventually will clear it up, obviously. But one thing is he kind of gives me like a middle of the road villain in the best way possible. He's bigger than like Riddler and like Clayface and kind of like the low tier villains for Batman, but he's also not like Court of Owls level. And I think that makes him kind of an interesting middle character and something that allows him to kind of grow into something bigger over time. Plus, I honestly think that the first real interaction between the Batman and the Minotaur is going to be insane. That moment alone is keeping me excited enough to read. And finally, for the last criticism I've heard a lot about is the pacing. This is one area where I kind of agree, but also not for some reasons. I don't think the pacing is bad. I think I'm just impatient. I just want to binge the whole story. I want the full arc like right now. I want to be able to sit down and read it all in one go and get to the end. Waiting month to month feels really fucking slow, even though it's pretty slow. I was going to say it's not that slow. It's pretty slow. I wish there was like 2 issues a month minimum, but you know, you can only ask for so much. But for some people though, it feels like they want the full story arc packed into like 30 pages instead of spread across 6 to 12 issues. So yeah, I get the criticism, but for me, it's less of like bad pacing and more of a pain of waiting. That's kind of it for like the criticisms that I've kind of heard from other people around me. But one thing I do really like about this Batman run, and it's something I honestly didn't expect going into this, is how self-contained each issue feels. You can pretty much pick up any issue and start reading and still understand what's going on. You'll get enough context to understand and kind of follow the story, understand the characters, and enjoy what's happening without feeling completely lost. And that might not sound like a big deal to longtime comic readers, but for me, it actually is. 6 months ago, when I first started reading comics, I thought every series was just massive, complicated webs of just lore, and you needed to read 10 other runs, crossovers, and events just to understand what was happening in that storyline. And I assumed that if you missed a single issue or jumped in too late, you'd be totally confused. So seeing a modern Batman run that tells a larger story but also lets each issue tell its own kind of story is really cool to me. It makes the series feel a lot more approachable, especially for new readers. At the same time, it doesn't feel shallow or pointless. Each issue still pushes the overall story forward, but also gives you the complete experience on its own, beginning, middle, and end. That balance is kind of hard to pull off, so I'm excited to see what Matt Fraction does, and I think he'll do really well with this run. And honestly, if this issue continues the strong individual issues slowly building to something bigger, I think it's going to age really well, and I'm really excited to collect it, to be honest. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of the criticism comes down to expectations from people that have been reading for a while. People came into the rewatch wanting Batman to already feel familiar, fully formed, emotionally refined, and perfectly aligned to whatever version of the character they personally love the most. For me, though, this is exactly why it works. I'm still forming my version of what I think Batman is now that I'm understanding more and more lore. Obviously, there are a lot of other Batman stories I would love to read, so send me those recommendations. Like, I know I need to read like The Long Halloween and The Court of Owls and stuff like that. Those are all on the reading list. But I love the suit designs. They're bold. The art makes Gotham feel alive. I'm really hoping that they make Tim kind of his own character in this one eventually. The villain isn't fully defined yet, and that's okay. And look, it's totally fine if the series doesn't work for you. Not every Batman run has to, but I don't think enjoying it makes you wrong. I definitely don't think it deserves the level of hate that it gets, especially this early into the story. So if you bounce after issue 1, I'd honestly say give it another shot. If you still don't like it, that's cool. But if you're like me, newer to comics, open to Batman, that has room to grow, and is just here to enjoy the ride of new comics, I think this run has a lot to offer. Let me know what you think. What's your favorite Batman suit? How do you feel about the villain so far? And where do you think this story is headed? Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Like and sub. Peace.